Good morning and welcome to our first Financial Mail and Tilt Live Red Zone in discussion with for 2022. And today we're talking all things TikTok with possibly the youngest panel that we've ever had on one of these sessions before, which is a great way to start the year. We know that TikTok has exploded in the past several years and really now represents a key way to engage with youthful audiences. But how is the platform used effectively, and how can it be used effectively for brands to drive revenue in a way that is still authentic? This is what marketing boardrooms all across South Africa are grappling with as they have to let go of their brand identity and CI and place it in the hands of people who are less than half their age. So what does it all mean for the broader social media landscape? That's our conversation live this morning with you. If you have questions, you can engage in the live chat. And now I'm going to introduce our very cool panel with millions of followers and TikTokers all around the country. And if I didn't want to come across as old as what I am, I'd make a joke about how I'm far too old for TikTok, but I'm just going to pretend as if I'm totally in the age demographic for this platform. This morning, we're joined live by Khotso Makele, who's a digital content creator, Mfumo Bamuza, who's also a digital content creator, and musician and digital content creator Kanyisa Jaseni. And to bring us the brand view and take us inside the boardroom is partner for digital at MNC Saatchi Abel, Melody Maker. Melody, let me come to you first. Over the past several months, suddenly TikTok became this buzzword. I know how these marketing managers are. Suddenly they need to see something to do with TikTok in the strategy. Suddenly you tell them that actually it's not just an ad that we're going to create for you in the studio. You're going to give your brand over to an individual and they're going to integrate it. In terms of the South African media and marketing community coming to terms with TikTok, what is the relationship looking like in the boardroom?
Thanks, Ari. I must say, I think I'm also the oldest person on the panel, but I think, age just gives us some wisdom, so that's all good. You're quite right. I think every brand that we are working with is asking the question, should we be on TikTok? Is it going to actually be advantageous to our brand? What does it look like? Platform. I think there's some golden principles that we ask ourselves and get our brands to consider. I think regardless of whether you're using Instagram or TikTok, I think you need to consider how people are engaging with the platform and whether you as a brand are willing to engage in that manner, and whether I think it's a brand fit. I think we know, and I'm sure the content creators will speak to that, there are very specific niches that I think are incredibly successful and are currently thriving. And I think you need to understand as a brand, do you have space within that niche? And because I think if you do, then you ultimately are going to cut through. But if you're just going to repurpose yet another ad that you've been using on TV or even YouTube, it's definitely not going to work. It's definitely not going to cut through.
Kanyisa, let me come to you. So we have an advertising industry where people sit in a room, they come up with great ideas for ads, they shoot the ads, they have full control in that entire process. You come onto the TikTok platform, you start kind of doing your thing, you start amassing this kind of really strong following that becomes attractive to brands. And suddenly there's this intersection between a brand wanting to work with you and you having to then find a way to work with the brand. And I know what these WhatsApp conversations look like when it's trying to land the brand and your own authenticity. So where do you think the local advertising community is at with understanding TikTok and giving the freedom to creators to create content within some form of framework?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kanyisa. And in my few examples, because I can't say years, I haven't been doing that, but so it's a few months. I've gotten to understand that so many brands love the authenticity, love who you are, but they just fail when it comes to they always just want to tell you, okay, we love how authentic you are, but be authentic like this. And what they don't understand is that the people and the demographic that followed us because of how we do things, so the whole wanting to, like, we don't want to twist your brand, but we want to twist your brand to fit our brand. Like, we know what you want. And I feel like it's a lack of trust between a brand and the creator. In fact, between brands never trust what we will bring to the table. They always feel like it won't be what they want, because it's not maybe that edited or whatever. But one thing that has to be understood, like each platform has their own type of look. For example, when you do your research and kind of understand these apps, Instagram is the more polished app. It's the more, okay, edited, boom, boom, crop, cuts, yes. And then TikTok, on the other hand, you can't take the same video you put on TikTok, on Instagram, and put on TikTok, because TikTok is more authentic. They want the real you. They want you. If you are giving them something or advertising for them, just don't make it feel advertising. Otherwise, your views will just go down. When you approach a person like me, I will wake up in the morning and make a TikTok. You should be allowed, like as a brand, should be allowed to give us space, give us room to actually create in the manner that we create on a daily basis.
So Mfumo, it's a bit of a catch-22 because you want to build a career as an influencer. You start sort of generating this following through very authentic content, but you still need to kind of tick boxes in terms of paying bills and getting a return on investment on the energy and the time that you're putting into TikTok. So picking up kind of on what Kanyisa has been speaking about, sort of walking this very fine balance between what the brand wants and what you want rather. How do you go about that in your context?
Thank you very much, and hello to everyone. I do think that striking a balance, firstly, is knowing your audience. I do think brands usually are interested in us, but what usually they are interested in is the impact they will have on our audiences. So this is why that catch-22 sometimes comes across with the brands, where they'll tell you how to curate or create your content, but because we want to make the coin at the end of the day, we'll follow the brief, we'll do what they, for example, would have given us to achieve, or the outputs that they would want us to achieve, but I do think that also adding to what Kanyisa just said, is that brands also need to understand that TikTok works on creativity being at the epicenter, but I think authenticity is very, very paramount, so in as much as you want to be able to access the audience that we have, you need to remember how we also got to build that audience, so to be able to monetize successfully is brands understanding that the work that we do or the videos that we post on TikTok need to also appeal to the audiences that we have worked hard for as well. So I do think that, yes, money is also important for us, but I do think that also keeping that audience is really, really important, and gaining more audiences who are going to appreciate the work is also important.
So you got to help me out with this TikTok story here, because I think everyone's kind of maybe to some extent wrapped their head around the concept of algorithm in a Facebook context and in an Instagram context. But you go through TikTok, you see different TikTok creators that can have X number of followers. They can have 100 views on one video and 2 million views on another video. Brands then look at that and they get even more stressed about this concept of trying to kind of blow up organically on TikTok. As a creator, your experience of this algorithm and what works and what doesn't work, how have you sort of navigated that in your own context to arrive at a point where you've got a strong following and you've got quite a consistent viewership regardless of the video?
Let me start by extending my warmest greetings to you and your audience, Mr. Arie. Now, I think the algorithm on TikTok is my favorite because it gives you unlimited access to a global audience. And you're not restricted by the number of followers you have or subscribers like on other platforms. And the onus is, at the end of the day, up to the content creator to create videos that allow or work with the algorithm in order to reach as many people as possible. So at the end of the day, it's up to you as a content creator to make sure that you know how the algorithm works and you work with it in order to reach the audience you wish to reach.
And Melody, picking up on what Holtz was saying, there's an additional lens to this, because there's also the idea of, well, I'm just going to buy the views. And for many brands, if something fails organically, there isn't always a conversation around, well, it's almost become a bit of a standard in our industry that nothing goes out without a paid media strategy behind it. So balancing that line between organic and paid as a brand in a TikTok context with all these ingredients that we've chatted about, how does a brand decide where they land on that spectrum?
I think, you know, for now, obviously, advertising in South Africa with regards to TikTok only recently opened up. So I think it's still in its infancy. So I wouldn't say it's either or. I'd probably say that, you know, it's the best is a combination of both. I think first and foremost, you have to consider the content. I think, and everyone has sort of echoed that, who are content creators on the platform. So I think you have to make sure that you're natively creating content that does do well on the platform. I think for any of our brands, I actually say, look, if you're not actually using TikTok, if you haven't even looked at it, you know, don't even talk to me about this. Like if I take a client of ours, for example, Standard Bank. So we had a new campaign that we wanted to launch, and what we obviously did was created content that was very specific to the platform, but then we utilized things like a branded hashtag, a branded filter, and then also partnered with some content creators. And that was incredibly successful for us. I mean, we had over 155 million views. So I think for us, it was a combination of, you know, kind of working with both levers. But I think, you know, even if you are putting paid media behind your work, if it isn't naturally engaging, if it isn't interesting, if it isn't very consumer first, I don't think it is going to work. So I think, yeah, I mean, we know this with Facebook and Instagram, and I think the same is true for TikTok. You've kind of only got those first 2-3 seconds to grab consumers' attention. So whether you're getting that eyeball or not, if it's not interesting, they're not going to engage with you.
Kanisa, let's pick up on this paid sort of conversation, because in a traditional context, paid media is put behind a brand advertising itself. In a TikTok context, largely the most successful form of TikTok advertising is to take your creator code or whatever the HTML language that you sort of land up with at the end, give it to the brand, and then the brand boosts it. But as the creator on the other side of that, how do you feel about boosting?
It for me, now that I'm used to understanding my algorithm and how quickly I know that within 10 minutes, I can tell when a video is going to do well after certain minutes. If I've gotten these amounts of views after this amount of time, then I know, okay, we're on a roll. So when it comes to brands boosting, you know, I'm like, hey, do what you gotta do. You know, I'm yours. I do render myself and render my services, you know. So I feel like it's in their control. If they have the powers, I would use those powers as well to boost myself, you know. So it's genuinely up to the brand, really.
We've got a lot of questions coming through this morning on the live chat, picking up on some of the things we've been speaking about. And obviously, one of the big talking points in the past few minutes has been there's a brand, there's a TikTok creator. How do the two of these things come together sort of in one beautiful way? And one of the questions coming through from a shock on the live chat is, how do you manage your brand reputation when collaborating with a TikTok influencer? Because you know, the reality is that every brand is very scared of being on Twitter for the wrong reasons and stuff getting taken through, and sort of someone making a mistake in their personal context and it reflects badly on the brand. So certainly the TikTok creators understand that. But Khotso, in terms of approaching, if you were the brand and you were managing the reputation, do you sort of understand what some of their concerns are? And how do you, as a creator, almost give the brand a little bit of comfort in terms of working and collaborating with you so that they do give you that extra little bit of freedom?
Thank you, Ari, for the question. I think because there are stages to a collaboration where you pitch your idea to the brand and they have the opportunity to accept the proposal or ask you to go back to the drawing board. I think this process allows for the brand, or it gives the brand some sort of comfort in terms of how much they can restrict you or sort of guide you in the right direction to what they want. So I think this process allows brands to sort of have control over the entire process.
Yeah, absolutely. And it probably is very much to do with how you kind of construct that initially when you're sort of having those initial conversations. The other thing that's part of initial conversations is also how brands remunerate you for this. So in a boosting context on TikTok, it's quite transparent in terms of X amount of views is going to cost X. But we know that there are TikTok creators in South Africa that have 20 followers that probably have the same rate card as someone with 1 million followers, and someone with 1 million followers the same rate card as someone with 50 followers. So there's no standardized base for how rates are created on TikTok. And I'm going to pose this question to Mfumo and to Melody. And Mfumo, I'm going to start it with you in terms of how you build your rate card. And then Melody, I want you to pick up on how you explain to a brand that wants to sign off on a PO that everything is in flux all the time and there's nothing standard about this. But Mfumo, first, just crossing to you in terms of how you charge as a creator.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I do think there are several things that you take into account when you rate yourself as a creator. I know one of which is previous or past partnership and brands you've worked with. I personally believe that for every gig or for every campaign I work on, the rate can't be the same for the next one, so we build higher. Definitely the amount of audience that you have, although we were trained or to never sell how many views we can offer because of things like boosting, etc. But I do think as well, I also consider the creativity put into the video as well, because with TikTok specifically, you have to have some sort of a creative element if you're going to partner with a brand, and if you're going to create content for them. And I think it also varies, for example, if you're doing a promotion or if you're doing a campaign and or influencing the work that they give you. So the rate definitely determines and varies across many criteria. But I do think that the most important one, obviously, being the past work that you've worked with, because if you are able to approach a brand or a brand approaches you, they ask you for a rate card, but I prefer sending a whole media kit that also explains or at least gives justification behind why I'm charging X amount or why I cost as much as I cost per video or per post. Yeah.
Melody, how do you explain that to procurement at a brand that want to benchmark and double check and sense check everything?
So I think it's important to establish the rules of engagement early on. And I think for a lot of agencies and brands, this is sort of a never-ending conversation. And I think it's why, influencer agencies have arisen, purely because of, I guess, the inconsistencies that do occur. So I think it is important. I mean, I liked what Mfumo was saying, that he essentially justifies his rate. So in many ways, when I look at working with content creators or influencers, it's about determining, what sort of engagement do they historically get, treating it pretty much like you would a media channel, having a look at their audience, the demographic, is it the right fit for who you're trying to reach, what sort of numbers are you looking at? And then obviously in terms of what they're creating. So if they are, partnering with you and you're going to co-create some content, how many pieces of content? And I think, at the end of the day, it is a discussion and ultimately a negotiation, but also, brand budget's also quite finite. So, when you have X amount of money to work with, that very often does dictate whether you can use, X influencer or Y. So I think, again, because TikTok specifically is a slightly new space, I think, it's still a bit of uncharted territory, and I think everyone's sort of trying to figure it out. But I think we do have experience, working with influencers across other platforms. And so I think, as with everything, eventually it will become slightly more standardized. But yeah, I think time will tell.
Kanisa, I mean, when influencing sort of started, it was this idea of, I'm a brand, I'm going to pay you, you're going to post about something. As it's evolved in our South African context, brands now repurpose content. Brands are far more sensitive to you having worked with another brand 6 months ago. And so it almost moves this influencer sort of space into a whole new space, which is, I'm charging you to post, but I'm also conscious of the fact that no other brand in a similar category is going to want to work with me for 6 months after this. I'm conscious of the fact that you're going to take this asset and you're going to boost it to 155 million people. And I mean, in terms of figuring out how to charge for that and how to build out that kind of costing when it is so fast paced and the brand just wants a rate and just give me the rate and I need to move. How do you, from a business perspective, manage your own kind of career and your own sense of, what TikTok does that and how it sort of works for you financially and in terms of your brand?
Well, so my brand has evolved. I went from being just a TikToker and now I'm becoming a full-fledged musician, So now as a musician, I was told to get management. And luckily enough, my management actually has worked behind the scenes. So they know what the brands want. They've been on the other side. So I'm fortunate enough to have those conversations and kind of understand what brands look for. And obviously, I'm building my brand to be that, So now I'm taking whatever experience and whatever I'm learning from being managed as a musician, I'm taking into TikTok as an influencer, because at the end of the day, it's my face and it's my face being attached to the product for a certain amount of months. And I am aware of the fact that I won't be able to work. It's a very competitive industry. Like I was once approached by a brand and I mentioned this other brand and the other person was like, okay, it's fine, no, it's fine. We're no longer working. I was like, oh, okay, sorry, And I feel like it's not even, it's like it's competitive, but it's not as competitive where they're like, okay, we're gonna raise our price. How much did they give you? Okay, we're gonna give you this. They're like, oh, you're working with them. Okay, we're not gonna help you out. Sorry, we don't need you. Thank you very much. On to the next one. It's a very so having the financial security and financial knowledge on all of these things, it's kind of tricky because we learn with mistakes. I have undercharged myself before. I probably still am undercharging myself. And it's a thing of knowing your worth and knowing the fact that your face will be attached to this brand for X amount of months. Some brands don't even forgive you for those 6 months. Even if you worked a year ago, they'd be like, but you still worked with them, So it's really a thing of getting to the core of what it is you do and sticking to yourself. If you are strict on, I'm not gonna work with this type of brands yet because I'm not ready, or your audience are kids. So why would you associate yourself with maybe an alcohol brand, So it's a thing of making brands and yourself solid in what it is you want to build your brand as, and then you'll just wait for whoever's willing to work with you, I guess.
So when you started your TikTok accounts, I mean, Kanyisa speaking here to a massive ecosystem. She's speaking to this as a very business-centric thing and a way to generate income. Obviously, when you start your TikTok account, though, you're starting TikTok because your friends have it, and then you kind of start doing something that, starts to differentiate you. You start building up a little bit of a following on the TikTok kind of platform. And then it switches to this kind of business universe. And how does that change your relationship with the platform? And how do you still make it a space that you're kind of having fun in? Because, if you're going to turn your TikTok channel into kind of consistent advertising, even if the advertising is quite authentic, it no longer really becomes an enjoyable thing for you. So how do you walk that balance between treating it as a business, but also treating it as a way to kind of just scroll for 2 hours and actually have quite a bit of fun?
I think it's important to have a balance. Number one, you need to still cater to your current audience by providing them with the content that you had initially attracted them with. And also when you do have sponsored content or work with brands, it's important that you collaborate with brands that speak to your brand and it makes sense to your audience, what you're trying to sell to them, because those are the people you're trying to sell to at the end of the day. And so it's important that collaborations make sense and align with your brand. And it's also important that you strike the balance of creating content that you usually created for your audience and not neglect them once you start collaborating or becoming an influencer in the space.
Yeah, because you don't want to be in that space where you're kind of just looking at this for content ideas that you can pitch that to a brand and make cash out of it. We've got lots of questions coming through on the live chat. We are live this morning with our panel talking all things TikTok, and we're going to run through some of those questions now. Beidou says, has there been success stories from local companies who've used TikTok for an advertising campaign through disruptive content? And Melody, I'm going to give this over to you because it's, the pre-process on this is quite intense. We've talked about negotiating influencer rates, getting the content right. But at the end of the day, brands want to see ROI, they want to see conversions. Now, we saw an amazing story a couple of weeks ago with Kay Yarms. You could go into her clicks, you could see that the product that she was talking about was sold out, and that's ROI. But when it comes to evaluating ROI in a TikTok context, where does it sit? And even more so than that, where does it sit within the mix? So how does it complement everything you're doing on TV or everything you're doing on radio? And how do you differentiate what that split's going to be from a media perspective?
So that's a great question. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, why brands would want to engage on TikTok. So earlier, obviously mentioned the Standard Bank campaign that we were running. And so I think for us, the key objective was awareness and getting that user engagement and user generated content, and so obviously for that campaign period, as I said, we got 155 million views, which for us was a success. But obviously that wasn't the only avenue or channel that we were using. So I think it is about considering, if you are going to use something like TikTok, what is your ambition behind it? I think in terms of, direct ROI, I think at the moment it is still tricky to measure that. And obviously I think as, ad units will more than likely increase and change. And I think TikTok ultimately will go the same route as a Facebook or an Instagram, where it's very measurable, where it's very much about the paid for advertising. I think at the moment it's a really great space to generate awareness around a product, around a specific campaign, and then obviously tie that into your broader sort of marketing mix and ecosystem. So for us, off that Standard Bank campaign, we got a lot of user-generated content, a lot of engagements, and for us, it was definitely successful. And I think, also because it was quite new, so obviously not a lot of brands are engaging in the space, and so the minute that you do something that is interesting, people do obviously take notice. So I think brands can achieve success. I think you just have to be very clear on what your ambitions are.
Yeah, and have that sort of set out from the beginning. There's a question coming through here from Potela. It says that, to what extent have social media influencers displaced traditional marketing agencies? And the question goes on for a little bit. I'm going to pose this to Khotso. Do you think it's more successful for the brand to come directly to you, or should the brand be working through an agency? What would you as a creator prefer?
I'd prefer they work through an agency, because agencies understand the space, they understand what we have to go through or what is required of us, whereas you find that the brand itself doesn't have the full understanding of how the space works or what is required, and they're used to working with traditional advertising agencies. So I think when you're working through a marketing agency, I think that's the best option.
It's a very politically correct answer, Khotso. That was a good answer to give, because I think there's only so much disruption that the whole industry necessarily wants to take, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. Mfumo, I want to come to you. There's a question from Lee here. Lee says, when creating content as a creator, how do you differentiate the type of content you put on TikTok versus Instagram? There's all these urban myths that if you leave the TikTok logo and you post it to Instagram, the Instagram Reels algorithm downweights you, but you should still do an Instagram Reel because Instagram are really trying to push the whole Reels thing at the moment. So these myths surround us all the time. But can you, and what has your experience been of taking a piece of content and putting it on TikTok and putting it on Instagram Reels, and how did the two kind of differ? Is Instagram, as Kanisa said at the top of this, still very sort of more curation heavy, more like a magazine, and is TikTok sort of the more everyday kind of platform?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, because I do actually take repurpose my content on Instagram as well. And I do think it doesn't necessarily get as much views or as much engagement as it would on TikTok, because I do think what TikTok's algorithm does best is that it rewards the video, you know. It's not based on quality politics. It's also not based on, for example, who you are. You know, it takes every video and throws it onto everyone's screen. And depending on how everyone engages with that video, the video gets promoted. So I do think that TikTok is a little bit more rewarding, but also it's a little bit free, because, like, for example, you can just record a TikTok, just like as Kanisha was saying earlier, you can wake up, think of a concept, record it, and post it on TikTok, you know. But I do think also Instagram's algorithm is a little bit weird, because it also prioritizes a lot of unnecessary things, you know, like, for example, quality, who you are, which accounts you associate with. But I'm not going to also bash Instagram as much, because I do think that there are certain videos of mine which actually did do well on Instagram as opposed to TikTok, but eventually with time, because, you know, videos develop as well on TikTok, TikTok generally is the better platform to use your video there without having to worry about all the those like fickle things that Instagram sometimes cares about.
Melody, in a brand context, this question of Instagram versus TikTok, shame, these pro brands have just got onto Instagram and just sort of figured this thing out. And now the conversation at the table is, well, do we need a TikTok account? Because you know that means extra manpower, content calendars, content plans. And then it's also like, what even works on that platform? So in terms of advising brands around their own TikTok pages and being TikTok creators themselves, what is your advice in the current kind of climate around that?
So early on, I obviously mentioned that there are a few categories or niches that have exploded. I think what really underpins TikTok is this idea of curiosity. So when you look at Instagram, I think Instagram for me is about inspiration. It's beautifully crafted, curated, whereas TikTok tends to be more about people being curious. I mean, you see a lot of hacks. So whether it's in, you know, the beauty industry, so people obviously doing makeup tutorials, etc., or cooking hacks. I mean, there was that feta tomato thing that went viral where everyone was trying it. And funny enough, even on Instagram, you'll see people advertising like as seen on TikTok. So I think if your brand naturally fits into one of those niches, I think it makes sense you to be there. So if you are a cosmetic brand for getting content, you know, get people familiar with your different products, you know, I think you can create really inspirational, interesting content. But if you're a brand that's not necessarily fitting into a niche, my advice would be, you know, really consider, are you wanting to be on TikTok just for the sake of ticking a box because it's a new fad? Or do you think perhaps partnering with the right content creator might be beneficial to your brand, you know, around perhaps creating awareness around a product or, you know, perhaps a launch. But I think you do really have to weigh it up. And, you know, I don't believe it's a one size fits all. I think, you know, you really need to interrogate it because I think we saw that back in the day, you know, everyone was like, okay, we have to be on every single platform and you have matching luggage, you know, all the same content repurposed. And I think, you know, that's changed. I think to really cut through, you have to consider each platform and why people are using it and how they're using it and really understand it if it fits for your brand. So yeah, I think that's incredibly important.
So let me come to you as kind of TikTok gains momentum and more people are joining the platform. It obviously means that there's more and more creators. And like you were speaking about a little bit earlier on, brands are incredibly fickle when it comes to selecting different creators. And to a large extent, a lot of them do have the attitude, well, I'm the client, I'm the person who's paying for this. If it suits you, that's great. If it doesn't, I'm going to move on to the next person. But talk to me for a second around how the creator landscape is evolving. And is there a sense of community amongst creators? Or is it kind of, this is everyone for themselves, I'm pushing to get as many views, as many followers as possible. Maybe there's a bit of collaboration, but essentially it's becoming quite competitive in terms of who's going to get the check.
Yes. So I think us as creators, us on our own, we have formed some type of bond, you know, because every app has its own politics. Like TikTok, we know there's the bullying, there's this and that. So you kind of make friendships and ask them, have you gone through something like this? Has this happened to you? You know, so that becomes a conversation. Then you try to obviously put the whole brand collaboration. I see you're on this campaign with me. Did you? It's very difficult to ask someone how much they getting paid or this and that. But to help each other out, we really try to push it. We can even say, yeah, I'm just getting 2 digits or this, that, and the third. We have our lingo, we have our own understanding. But the bigger thing is, I feel some brands just go with, they just see your profile, your followership, and they don't even look at your videos, which I think is a very bad thing to do as a brand. You should really thoroughly do your research, go through this person's videos and kind of see, go through their comments, go through the type of people that they interact with, so that you can maybe understand better what it is the person does, because it becomes very difficult for us and people can read the energy when they're watching the video. They're like, you're very scripted. We don't like that. We're not gonna watch this video. Swipe up, you know. So I would say amongst us creators, yes, we're friends, we're all of that, but we are aware of how competitive it is. And we have close friends. We good, like we cool, but it's a very tricky thing to kind of find a balance and make meaningful conversation out of when it comes to money. It's like telling someone what your salary is, of which is very difficult, you know. So yeah, we're aware it's competitive, but we don't know how competitive it is.
So, Kotso, as we start to kind of begin landing this conversation in the next couple of minutes, where does it all go? How does it evolve? What do you think the future of this platform is? How do you look at your future on the platform, and how do you look at the future of the platform?
True. I'm excited to see the future. My fear is that it becomes too saturated with branded content. It becomes like another YouTube where you're stuck with a lot of ads, and you know, I'm just scared it loses its creative touch, or what makes the app what it is. But I'm hopeful because of how many different people, different personalities you get to see on the app, how many talents you discover on the app. So it's bittersweet. I'm both hopeful and also quite skeptical of where it might be headed.
And Melody, how do you handhold through this whole process where the creators themselves don't necessarily know? The people that are on the platform every day are like, we're not really sure where this thing is going to go. You've got the client on the other side who wants to see a media plan. They want to know what 6 months looks like. You know, they want to be able to sign off for TikTok like they do a TVC treatment. So how do you hold that hand? And is there not enough of a job being done around education? Or are South African marketers that are signing off these budgets actually not receptive enough to realizing that you kind of just got to go with the flow here?
I think there's a couple of things to consider. So first and foremost, I mean, TikTok only has, I mean, the latest stats is 9.3 million active users. So it's not nearly as much as, you know, many of the other platforms. So I think, as I said, it's still in its infancy and we do need to give it some time. In terms of where it's going to go, at the end of the day, TikTok is a business. And unfortunately, I do think, you know, we will see more advertisers as the platform continues to grow, as the current audience continues to age and we get new people in, you know, obviously it is going to expand. So I think, again, for me, it's really about considering, you know, the brand's objectives, who their target audience is, what it is that they're trying to achieve, and if it actually makes sense for them. You know, at the end of the day, you're given specific brand budgets and you have objectives and targets in mind, and that, you know, that's our role essentially as an agency, you know, as marketers and strategists, is to guide the brand in the best way possible to ensure that they're ultimately, you know, getting bang for their buck. So I think, you know, I think you really have to consider all those factors, and it shouldn't just be, you know, a knee-jerk reaction. Yes, okay, you know, let's be on TikTok and hope for the best. I think you have to really look at the cold, hard facts and really address it as such.
We're going to take closing thoughts in a second as we almost land this plane, but there's one final lens I want to put on it, which is specifically directed to Kanyisa, which is this kind of music and TikTok lens. I mean, it's been fascinating for me to sort of start understanding the kind of synchronicity between a track being really sung on TikTok and that actually being one of the best ways to promote that. And then the TikTok creator almost being there. So how would you say it's shaping the local music scene, the global music scene? Because we see all the time that a track suddenly becomes massive on TikTok, the artist gets signed, and then they do like a massive deal. I mean, the way that music can explode on TikTok is perhaps unlike any other iteration of how something can explode on TikTok. So how has it kind of added value to your brand as a musician, and how do you use it as a musician? I think we're going to come back to Kanyisa in a second to answer that question. So let's take some closing thoughts. I'm going to start with you, Khotso, before I go back to Kanyisa, just to wrap up that conversation around music and TikTok. Khotso, you've got a bright career on TikTok. We don't really know what it looks like. You're working with some very, very cool brands. Tell us a little bit more about sort of some of the brands that you're working with and where you kind of want to take this whole thing, and then sort of a final word to the marketing community around how to get the best out of you and the best out of a collaborative relationship with you as a creator.
Thank you for the question, Ori. I'm so grateful to have worked with the brands that I've collaborated with. To list a few, I've worked with Essentials, I've worked with Woolworths, Liquid Fruit, and I think my favorite was Woolworths because it's like a childhood dream. You know, you grew up knowing or shopping at this place, and now you sort of on the other side. And it was really, it was fun for me to create the content because I had always had the concept in my head. And then my future, I'm hoping to sort of change conversations around men's fashion in South Africa and encourage more men to actually take note of their appearance or actually put effort into their appearance. And I'm also hoping to use my platform to advocate for issues that like peace and, you know, world peace, things I hold dear to my heart. And I'm hoping to reach a certain level where I can advocate for these issues and speak on them.
Picking up on that kind of social narrative, Mfumo, you know that one of my favorite pieces that you've done on TikTok is your collaboration with Discovery around sort of the vaccination drive. And I mean, that's kind of TikTok and brands and social sort of issues all coming together in this very interesting way. It's not necessarily about just sort of selling the bar of chocolate. Here it is about doing sort of education for people and using the platform to inform them around something that is sort of very beneficial for them. So your career on TikTok and where you see this all going, where do you kind of want to take this thing? And what is your message to brands around how to work with TikTok creators to get the best out of them?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Discovery was one of my incredible brands, and of course it was like spot on to the type of content that I was doing when I started doing TikTok. I definitely see myself working with other brands, you know, because I do think that brands need to firstly take the risk with TikTok, you know, because I think all of us actually, when we joined the platform, it was just like, let's see what this has to offer. And, you know, it can quickly change into a career. It can quickly change into something that you can sell to brands, or an account that you can sell to brands for advertising space, you know. So I do think more in line also with the conversation is that TikTok is about that, you know, like taking a risk with creators, you know, trusting that creators know their audience, you know, but also trusting that creators, especially creators like myself and creators who are also on this discussion, that we've worked with brands before. So as much as the app is in its infancy, we are also aware to, or at least how to manage the app, or how to manage, for example, set brand when we associate or collaborate with the brand. So I would definitely advise brands to actually just take a risk, but also with it, but also brands to notice that creating content on TikTok yes, it may start as a hobby, but also creativity or the creative industry as a whole is something that also needs to be rewarded. So I would really encourage brands to also start rewarding creators, because if you associate with the creator and the creator does work for your brand and the work gets like great exposure, gets great engagement, that means gets to show that there is benefit and advantage within the industry, and we can give money or put money to creators, especially TikTok creators, to boost the work that we've been doing. So I think marketing just is generally moving to the digital era, but as opposed to the traditional marketing, but also it moving to the digital era requires the use of certain individuals and certain people. And then unfortunately, fortunately enough, at the space that we live in, TikTok is the leading app. TikTok is the leading most downloaded app. You know, everything that starts at TikTok, everything that is a trend starts on TikTok. So there is a huge benefit that I think, and I would compel brands to actually consider, but also open their purses. Thank you.
Yeah, it's over 9 million users in SA. And there's a whole other conversation to have around how stuff on TikTok then sort of lives on traditional media platforms and influences creativity. Just before I land this with Melody, Khanyisa, I want to come back to you just to round out the conversation. You've got a double revenue stream on TikTok because you use it to work with brands and then you use it to promote your music. And that collaboration between music and TikTok is explosive when it's done right. There's countless amounts of artists that have blown up on TikTok that never necessarily would have been signed or been discovered. So that collaboration and that synchronicity is something incredible. So your future as a musician and a TikTok creator, what do you think it looks like? And are you excited for 360 deals now where the brand licenses your track, they have you on TikTok, you're in the TV ad? I mean, you're really getting this thing down pat.
I'm honestly so excited for everything and all of the opportunities that will come my way, hopefully. However, I just feel like really, as Mfumo had said, it is a risk for both of us on both of our ends, because we're risking not being liked by certain people because we worked with a certain brand and all of that, you know. So I think it is worth investing more than anything. Music is a part of it. I'm still honestly understanding how those things work. But above it all, as I've understood TikTok and the algorithms and being an influencer, I would say that it is very important for all of us to understand that there's a starting point and there's where we're supposed to go. And all of us eventually will reach the goal if we are together holding hands, and we're gonna make it to the top. So let's just go. Let's just work. I'm just here for it. Let's work. Let's go.
Awesome, I love it. And just before we do go, Melody, a final word from you, just giving us the kind of brand lens on all of this. I have no doubt that there was nothing more awesome than saying to Standard Bank, he has 155 million views. Comparatively to everything else, this has just knocked it out the park. So when you get it right, those pros are there. But what's your kind of words of encouragement in getting this off the ground? Because it certainly takes a lot more energy than a lot of the more traditional ways of marketing and advertising do.
Completely. If anything, I would say to brands, again, if it is the right fit, you know, to take a page out of, you know, someone like Burger King's book. You know, in South Africa, we tend to be quite risk averse as brands. You know, you kind of want to see all the other brands jump on the bandwagon first, and, you know, sort of as a proof of concept. And I think, you know, at the moment, opportunity is ripe. And I think if it is the right target audience for your brand, if you are willing to take a risk, then I think, you know, you really can have a huge success. But again, I think, you know, spend some time on the platform. You know, I think, you know, all marketers should actually download. I mean, I have TikTok. And I think, you know, really get to grips with, you know, how people are consuming it. Because, you know, at the end of the day, whilst we might be marketers, we're all actually consumers as well. So, you know, if you are going to be putting something out on TikTok, you know, really consider, is this something, if I was a consumer or as a consumer, would I actually engage with this? And then, I mean, something that I've been saying since I kind of first started in the industry some 13 years ago, you know, content. Content is king, and it's the reason why platforms like Netflix are as successful as they are. And I think it's the reason why TikTok is successful, is because of the nature of the content. So really consider it. Don't just take your TV ad and repurpose it on TikTok. It's not going to work. So yeah, but I think, if you're the right sort of brand and you got the right sort of products and you're very clear about your ambitions, I think it's an exciting space for brands to be playing.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a fantastic panel discussion this morning. Perhaps the major takeout is that the only constant is change. And if you are a little bit scared of this TikTok story, then you're really not going to like the metaverse. But maybe we'll do that conversation in about a year from now, just to sort of manage expectations and moderate views. I want to say thank you so much to this morning's epic panel. It's really been a great kickstart to our series of conversations on the Financial Mail and Red Zone in discussion withs for 2022. Joining us were the icons of TikTok, Khotso Makele, who's a digital content creator, as is Mfumu Bamuza, and Kanyisa Jaseni has multiple income streams on TikTok. She sells you the track and the TikTok all as once. So her usage just goes on for days. And giving us the brand lens there is a partner for digital at MNC Saatchi Abel. I mean, undoubtedly a massive leader in terms of forging into the TikTok space. Melody can get you 155 million views. Who else can promise you that on a Wednesday morning? It's been great spending time with everyone this morning. We'll see you again soon for our next In Conversation With. If you missed any of it, it's all available on demand on the Financial Mail Red Zone In Discussion With platforms on the Arena Events platforms. Thank you so much to the panel and have a wonderful day of TikTok ahead. Cheers.